My name's Rhiannon White, I'm the theatre director from Cardiff. I co-run and co-direct a theatre company called Commonwealth, and over the past year I've been writing a report for the Arts, Humanities and Research Council on class, so social class and the arts. And the report itself is I think at quite an interesting and crucial time. I think there's a lot of talk about it in the arts sector, actually in society as a whole. And the way I've approached it is I've been interviewing artists and cultural leaders and MPs and musicians and grime artists and participants. So I've got this really broad spectrum of people that I've interviewed to build a bit of a landscape of what is going on in the UK at the moment in the art world and what is life like for working class artists trying to break through the class ceiling that exists within our sector.
If you don't walk down the street and you're in tracksuit bottoms smoking a fucking joint, I know the way you're looking at him. You're looking at him like he's a scumbag, smoking a fucking... Yeah, if you're smoking puff at a party, a wine party with your fucking bread and cheese, it's a lot more classy. And you don't have any sort of inherent judgment on that. Also, you can afford to have fucking a little stint at rehab and come back and you're strong for it. You can't afford that shit.
If you come with quite a lot of passion and you're quite natural, and if you're speaking from an experience that is your own, people get it, they connect. And then I found that once I was in this experience, I just felt like immediately there was a bit of a barrier or a block. I realised that I didn't have the same experiences as the people that I would be going up against if I went to auditions, and just felt quite unworthy, just off the bat. So yeah, that was my initial kind of experiences, and I suppose I had to kind of work my way up through being an assistant, and I think it's taken a little bit of time. It's funny because I always feel like I am the problem, and then when I get asked to solve the problem as well, I'm like, fucking hell, I can't do it all. But I also just think that, like, my initial thought was that white middle class people need to just step out of the way a bit, or actually seek to understand. If you're only working with people of a certain experience or background, you're getting half of a story or a little bit of a story. I feel as though you miss out on the spectrum of what it means to be a person.
You know, like what time of day they'd have their food. Like, I was always raised to have dinner or tea. Dinner was lunch and tea was like dinner, but you'd have tea at like 6 o'clock after the Week of Sling on BBC Two. So I was like, well, I'm gonna start having dinner at 8 now, and I still have dinner at 8 o'clock, but that's like an example of pretending to be something I'm not.
So we basically express that we believe that there's not enough working class people in theatre because they don't get the opportunity to be in theatre. They're all for, you know, these talented people, they've got loads of experience, you know, bring them in. Well, why can't you let other people have a chance? They're writing plays about things that they've never experienced, places they've never been to. So what we're trying to say is, why not let the people who are just as good, just as talented, yeah, they might have less experience because they couldn't afford it. Why don't you let them have a go and basically show, you know, bring the realness into it. So if you want to do a play about people on council estates, why are you paying professional actors to do it? Why don't you get actors who are from council estates to do it?
I can read and I can use it. I can make new friends. I can work right throughout the night. I'm a steel worker. I can entertain people I've never met before. I can make time to do things for myself while working 48 hours a week and keeping 2 kids happy. Both my parents worked in my house, and both parents work in my children's house. I had both my parents growing up, and my kids got both their parents.
Rhiannon White came to watch me in a local pantomime we do in the rugby club, and she came to meet us a little bit after that when she first started writing her report, just to sort of interview people on how what sort of representation the working class people have got in my area, in my community of Port Talbot, in the way of theatre and arts, and is there opportunity for somebody from that sort of background to get into the arts. So it was a great chat, and she went on to say about We're Still Here, the project Commonwealth and National Theatre Wales are doing, based in Port Talbot, about the Save Our Steel campaign with the steelworks. Now, being a steelworker, that spoke to me, massively, and I wanted to be part of it. So I asked Rhiannon outright, is there any chance, I can audition? And to be given that chance and to achieve that chance is a massive thing for me. With the difference in classes and in the arts, I think I've only really learned about it since I've stepped foot into it, really, because obviously for the last 13 years I've done pantomime in my local rugby club, but now I'm really stepping into the arts and looking to earn a living out of the arts. It sort of flagged up a few different things for me then, and brought a few things that I didn't think existed to my attention. I'd say I'm a bit of an exception to the rule though, because I'm a working class background. I've got no, I didn't go to RADA, I didn't go to Lambda, I didn't go to, the big schools. Yet here I am, I'm earning a living from doing art. So perhaps you can call it a bit of a success story. But for me, it shouldn't be odd. That shouldn't be an exception to the norm.
So I created a performance out of the research and the interviews, and the performance itself is a way of kind of generating conversation, because I think for me it wasn't just enough to write a report. There's been countless reports written about social class. What I wanted to do is get a conversation going between artists, audiences and institutions and policymakers, because I think that's who needs to be talking, actually. And it isn't just about the people who reading reports, it's actually about a bigger conversation where everyone can kind of be listened to and every voice is on a kind of equal playing field. So that's been my mission with the show itself.
We live in a time where the only time we see working class people on stage or on television is in the negative context. Look at these programs like Benefit Street or Life on the Dole. It's perpetuating a negative stereotype. Beautiful individual voices are not being heard, and I think that's a problem. A lack of community engagement, a lack of opportunities for working class artists, the barriers certain institutions put in place to stop working class artists from working. They are some of the issues we talk about in this piece.
One of the things that me and Rhiannon have been talking about for a long time is trying to peel away the assumptions around the arts, and I believe in one sense this is what Rhiannon and Commonwealth are trying to do, is to try and lay bare, if you like, the power relations which exist within the arts. With the setting up of the Arts Council after World War II, suddenly subsidy was available. And I think if we look back at those times, what we find is that what they call the high arts, in other words, opera, ballet, the arts which give them more value, were placed right over the heart of the subsidised system. So it kind of squeezed out the working class right from the beginning. And I think in one sense, the working class, in terms of working class culture and arts, has been playing catch up. We're told to accept this, that and the other, and that's our starting point. But what if our starting point is somewhere else? That means we have to build our own ideas. We have to build our own way of doing things. Otherwise, I think we'll end up imitating middle class view of life. The theatre, for example, is our playground where all those dangerous ideas about changing society are played out. So yes, society in general loses a multiplicity of voices, but it's really us as a class that lose, because we don't have that imaginative playground by which we can explore all the different possibilities which we need to explore to continue to exist as a class and transcend ourselves as a class.
People feel that it's not for them, so theatre is for other people. It's partly for people who can afford it, but often the things that are kind of shown don't actually relate to people's lives. And yet, when theatre or when heritage becomes something meaningful to people and that they can feel connected to, then it becomes really powerful. I think when we have things like this and some of the work that Rhiannon has done, we hear the stories, we hear the untold stories that don't get represented unless people from working class communities are actually represented in arts, in universities, in other walks of life as well. When you change the place, you change the story, you make it inclusive, then it becomes important, you know, that it changes things for working class communities. And why should it just be for people who can afford to go to a theatre? And why should theatre just be in a building anyway?
So yeah, it's very fashionable at the moment for artists to be making work in communities, whatever that means to them, you know. And you see it in London now, where artists will go and deliver work in big tower blocks that are just about to be ripped down or gentrified, and how they're used as a bit of a tool to kind of soften the blow on communities, on working class communities who are already having everything torn from them. So I think we've got some massive questions around the role of the artist, the role of the arts. What happens when there is this massive missionary kind of spirit around everything and everyone is going out to rescue the poor people who all voted Brexit and have no idea about culture? Like, I think that's when the dynamics shift and get dangerous, and that's when people get pushed further and further apart, is when we distance them. So who gets to choose the value of art? Who gets to choose where the money goes? Yeah, who gets to choose who makes it? Because the communities that are deemed hard to reach, or deemed the ones that we need to change and alter and offer culture to, there's culture already there.